Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas. I'm Molly Kampir. Let's get started. We've seen a lot of optics, smiles, generous praise exchanged between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. Those discussions carry far-reaching ramifications, and while we decode the messaging, we're also taking you beyond what the cameras are showing and what the two leaders are saying as tensions and differences remain on a number of issues. We look at the key questions. Also on the show tonight, looking back at Trump's opening statement in China in 2017 and what was different this time around. Russia launching a major air assault on Kiev. All this and more coming up. The last time Trump visited China was way back in 2017. A lot has changed since then. But will this visit be a game changer in any way? A lot needs to happen for that. For now, a lot is riding on the discussions between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping at a time when the Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz, and the tensions over Taiwan are dominating the global agenda. When the two leaders posed for the cameras, Xi Jinping appeared composed, also steady, perhaps a reflection of his long tenure in power. Donald Trump, meanwhile, showed visible shifts in expression. He twitched, even grimaced during the photo op. Donald Trump, who is generally accustomed to eating McDonald's, is being forced to expand his palate as well at tonight's state banquet in Beijing. The menu including lobster in tomato soup, crispy beef ribs, Beijing roast duck, stewed seasonal vegetables, slow-cooked salmon in mustard sauce, and also trumpet shell-shaped pastry, just to name a few. As the dinner cab between the two leaders went smoothly, there was little when it came to actual substance. What was on the menu, really? The first day of talks between the two sides appeared cordial, with both the leaders emphasizing cooperation and stability in the relationship. At that state banquet inside the Great Hall of the People, Xi Jinping said the relationship, in fact, is the most important in the world today, saying both countries must make it work and never mess it up. He also said China's rejuvenation and Trump's Make America Great Again vision could go hand in hand. Take a listen in.
The people of China and the United States are both great peoples. Achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and making America great again can absolutely go hand in hand, help each other succeed and advance the well-being of the whole world.
U.S. President Donald Trump struck a notably warm tone when it comes to the ties with China, calling the U.S.-China relationship one of the most consequential in world history. Trump highlighted cultural and economic links between the two countries, using Chinese food in America as a symbol of deep people-to-people ties.
As allies in World War II, President Franklin Roosevelt's mentions of the brave people of China, that's what they were, drew loud cheers in his speeches in the United States, and everybody loved what he had to say, just as many Chinese now love basketball and blue jeans. Chinese restaurants in America today outnumber the 5 largest fast food chains in the United States, all combined. That's a pretty big statement.
But behind the diplomatic optics, the smiles, the praise, the Iran war and the future of the Strait of Hormuz remains central to the discussions and also overall that visit. According to a White House readout, Trump and Xi agreed that the Strait of Hormuz must remain a free waterway and that Iran should not be able to impose payments or restrictions on global shipping through the strait. The issue has taken on greater urgency now after Iran closed the strait following the US-Israel strikes, disrupting global energy supplies and impacting oil and gas shipments around the world, sending out those ripple waves that we've been talking about. Trump, meanwhile, has been pursuing to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz remains open for international shipping, while simultaneously maintaining a strict US naval blockade specifically against Iranian vessels. Hormuz currently reeling between Iran's control and the US blockade. In fact, on X, the White House posted an image from the meeting between the two countries. In its post, the White House claims that China has strongly opposed the militarization in the Hormuz Strait and agrees with the US that both Iran, that Iran cannot possess nuclear weapons. So that's the crucial takeaway as well. The visit also coming amid differences within the Trump administration over how China should actually respond to the crisis. Before the two leaders even sat down to toast the relationship between the two sides, the US Secretary of State called on Beijing to take a more active role in stabilizing the region and helping restore normal shipping through the strait. Not just that, he urged Beijing to assert diplomatic pressure on Iran at the United Nations. Here's what he said.
He did, and it was important because the Chinese side said they are not in favor of militarizing the Straits of Hormuz, and they're not in favor of a tolling system. And that's our position.
At the same time, a confidential US intelligence assessment has raised concerns about China's role during the conflict. According to the report, China has used the Iran war to expand its military, economic, and diplomatic advantage over the United States. The report claims Chinese companies discussed sending weapons to Iran through third countries to hide their origin, while China also sold weapons to the US allies in the Persian Gulf reportedly as they faced Iranian missile and drone attacks. The assessment also saying China helped countries deal with energy shortages after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz disrupted global supplies. US officials believe the war has also provided Beijing an opportunity to study American military operations, including how America deploys resources and responds to regional conflicts. Not just that, the report notes that the conflict has drained US munitions stockpiles and damaged military hardware and facilities across West Asia. Taiwan also emerged as a key issue, of course, during that visit so far. While Trump did not publicly comment on Taiwan, very interestingly, China's official readout said Xi Jinping warned that the issue could push the US-China relationship down a dangerous path and even lead to conflict. Remember, Xi Jinping had called the Taiwan issue the most important in this relationship and urged the US side to exercise extra caution in handling the Taiwan question. The Chinese leader also warning that the conflict between China and America could break out if the issue is mishandled. So that's the red line by Xi Jinping clearly. Rubio, meanwhile, cautioned that any Chinese attempt to seize Taiwan by force will be a terrible mistake. The US reportedly said this while asserting that Washington's policy towards Taiwan remains unchanged. Trump has also invited Xi Jinping to visit the White House in September. However, it's not yet clear whether the Chinese leader has accepted that invitation. In comparison to US President Donald Trump's last visit to China in 2017, a lot has changed as far as the dynamics of the bilateral ties are concerned. While back then, Xi Jinping was only into his first term as China's president, and his approach towards Trump has visibly changed all this while after consolidating power. Just to put that into perspective, while both countries were competing on the military front even back in 2017, the US dominated the world economy back then. It accounted for 17% of the global GDP, while China stood at a distant second. Similarly, 19% of China's exports went to the US, and since then the situation has considerably reversed, with China growing stronger as far as the economy, military, and diplomacy are concerned. So that's very significant. Not just that, AI and the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and West Asia are unique factors that are shaping the discussions as well this time. A comparison of Trump and Xi's opening remarks, in fact, from their bilateral meetings way back in 2017, painting a revealing picture when it comes to what's been happening. Back in 2017, the Chinese leader focused on areas like strengthening cybersecurity cooperation, committing with the US to denuclearize North Korea. What about this time around? Xi Jinping's tone seems to have changed. While highlighting the significance of the bilateral ties, he cautioned the US president on a number of aspects. And as Trump remains unable to wriggle out of the Iran war, Xi Jinping urged the US to overcome the trap, which is a historical term that warns of the conflict between a rising power and an established superpower. Amid Trump's tariff war, Xi Jinping also advocated trade ties on an equal footing. However, his key intervention was on Taiwan. As per China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Xi Jinping termed Taiwan as the most important issue in the bilateral ties. He warned Trump of potential clashes and conflict if the situation is not handled properly, maintaining that independence of Taiwan and cross-strait peace are as irreconcilable as fire and water. He urged the US to exercise extra caution in handling the Taiwan question. And this assumes significance, of course, at a time when the US has paused arms sales worth $11 billion to Taiwan. In contrast, Trump's approach has also changed visibly. In 2017, he appeared to be on the front foot by getting China to agree on North Korea's nuclear threat and bolster cooperation against terrorism in Afghanistan. He also openly called for reforms that advance economic freedom, individual rights, and the rule of law. This time around, though, the US leader was conspicuous by his silence on Taiwan. While the White House claimed that Xi Jinping opposed militarization of the Strait of Hormuz and attempts to charge a toll, and expressed interest in purchasing more American oil, Beijing did not quite confirm that. Plagued by economic challenges back home, Trump's opening remarks seemed to focus more on expanding market access for American businesses and in China, in fact, and enhancing Chinese investment into the US. His remarks have also fueled the perception in a way that he was trying to keep Xi in good humor.
And I just want to say, on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them. We asked the top 30 in the world, every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China.
And with Trump facing an increasingly assertive Xi, will he be able to get the best deal for the US is the big question, and a lot rides on what unfolds in those discussions, where the future roadmap for the relationship will become clear, perhaps. Switching gears for now, Kiev has endured one of the fiercest air assaults of the war so far across 2 relentless days. Skies seeing drones, missiles, air raids, sirens being witnessed. The strikes left 17 dead, around 120 injured. The Ukrainian Air Force says Russia has fired more than 1,500 drones at Ukraine over the last 36 hours itself. Our next report getting you the latest from the battlefield.
The warning sirens screamed first, then came the sound that has become all too familiar across Ukraine. The buzz overhead, the rush to shelters, the wait for impact. For 2 straight days, the skies over Ukraine turned into a battlefield. Wednesday rolled into Thursday without respite. Daylight attacks flowed into overnight strikes. The pressure never eased. Then the scale became clear.
The sound was unbelievable. The sound of something moving at very high speed. It felt like the whole building was shaking, you know. Windows and glass flying everywhere. And it felt like the house was collapsing. It really felt like the building was falling.
All the glass, all the furniture fell. Everything collapsed. Everything was blown apart by the blast wave. The window frames were twisted out. I got up, not even sure if I was alive or not. I guess I am, since I'm talking to you. Then I started running barefoot over the glass.
The numbers paint a stark picture. Wednesday saw 41 missiles and 652 drones involved in the assault. Thursday brought another wave, with nearly 800 drones reportedly entering the battle space. The images coming out are dramatic. Rescue teams digging through shattered concrete, smoke pouring from residential blocks, broken windows hanging over streets littered with debris.
I heard something flying, it's flying nearby. I think, Lord, where will it fall? And then there was such a terrible sound, and our house, which is opposite, jumped and staggered.
I saw the hit with my own eyes, and then I looked. There is a gap between these 2 buildings which wasn't there before. There was something between them before, and now such a tragedy has happened.
Emergency workers in Ukraine's Kyiv region removed an unexploded missile warhead lodged inside a residential building. This latest escalation also comes as Ukraine has continued its own long-range drone operations deep inside Russian territory, targeting military and strategic sites. Both sides are increasingly stretching the battlefield far beyond the front lines. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And the Russian foreign minister has called on Prime Minister Modi in New Delhi. The 2 sides exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest, including, of course, the ongoing war in Ukraine and the situation in West Asia. During the meeting, in fact, Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's consistent position that dialogue and diplomacy are the best way forward. Lavrov is in New Delhi to attend the BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting, and India is hosting the 2-day BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting in the national capital. The war in Iran, global fuel crisis, top items on the agenda dominating the talks. In fact, the meeting coming as the bloc of leading emerging economies faces division over the war in Iran. It also coincides with the US president's ongoing China visit, of course. The Indian External Affairs Minister has reaffirmed the country's stand that dialogue and diplomacy are the only sustainable means of resolving conflicts. He added that the conflict in West Asia merits particular attention amid the risks to maritime traffic and disruptions to energy infrastructure. Jaishankar's call for stability coming amid internal divisions within the grouping that has expanded over the course of the years. In addition to the original members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. BRICS now includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE as well. On the sidelines of the meeting, in fact, Prime Minister Modi met the Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi also in New Delhi to participate in that meeting. This also comes amid the rising tensions in West Asia and marking the first high-level diplomatic engagement involving India since the Iran war started. Arakchi arrived in the national capital aboard an aircraft carrying a pointed message from Tehran. The inscription on the plane, as you can see, that reference to the 168 school children in Iran who were killed in that strike on a school. This was on the 28th of February. Arakchi, in fact, has called on BRICS member countries to explicitly condemn violations of international law by the US and Israel and prevent the politicization of international institutions.
Member states and all responsible. That false sense of entitlement must be shattered by all of us. Iran, therefore, calls upon BRICS member states and all responsible members of the international community to explicitly condemn violations of international law by the United States and Israel, including their illegal aggression against Iran, a member of BRICS.
The shadow of the war in West Asia looming large over that meeting, of course, the ceasefire between Iran and the US remaining precarious with frequent accusations of violations in the Strait of Hormuz, the war of blockades in this critical waterway triggering that global energy crisis. In fact, India depends heavily on imports from the Gulf, so that's the other significant factor. After Prime Minister Modi drastically reduced his convoy size in pursuance of fuel conservation appeal measures amid the West Asia war, leaders across India continued to emulate. From union ministers to chief ministers, austerity measures are being witnessed. Let's take a look. Before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Is an energy nightmare playing out on loop in Cuba? We tell you why this matters and more about what's really happening on the ground. A powerful storm in India has killed over 100 people. We get you a detailed report. All this and more coming up. The Strait of Hormuz continues to remain at the center of those escalating West Asia tensions, and a lot depends on what happens in that crucial waterway. Iran is doubling down. But is this a fresh maritime confrontation on the horizon is the question. In the latest, Iran claims it has deployed small submarines in the Strait of Hormuz as the invisible guardian of the waterway. Not just that, the Iranian military has warned that it will no longer allow US weapons shipments to pass through Hormuz towards regional bases without Iranian oversight, raising possibilities of a new maritime confrontation. The Iranian naval chief, in fact, says the country's Ghadar-class mini-submarines, also known as the Dolphins of the Persian Gulf, are now operating across the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says it has positioned more than 20 of these submarines along the seabed of the strait last month itself. Let's tell you more about this. First unveiled in 2007, the Ghadar-class was specifically designed for shallow water warfare in narrow shipping lanes like Hormuz. The submarine measures roughly 29 meters in length with a beam of 9 meters and a draft of 8.2 meters, making it one of the world's smallest operational military submarines. And Iran, by the way, sees that small size as a battlefield advantage is something that can be capitalized on clearly. The submarine can maneuver in waters as shallow as 30 meters, almost identical to the average depth of key shipping channels inside the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says the submarines use sonar evasion technology, making detection difficult in shallow waters. Each submarine carries two 533mm torpedo tubes capable of firing heavyweight torpedoes, naval mines, cruise missiles, including Iranian-made Hoot super-cavitating torpedo, which can basically reach speeds of nearly 360 kilometers per hour. Iran also says the upgraded Ghadar submarines can launch cruise missiles that have a strike range of up to 300 kilometers, extending Iran's reach deep into the Gulf of Oman. In fact, a single Ghadar submarine can lay between 4 and 8 naval mines directly into shipping lanes. American military analysts say the submarines can quietly operate on battery power for only limited periods and as such remain vulnerable when they surface or use snorkels to recharge batteries, basically because radar systems and patrol aircraft could easily detect them. That's what they say. At the same time, defense experts also warn that the Ghadar class remains highly dangerous in shallow waters, where stealth, mines, and also surprise attacks can change a lot of things and can disrupt the global shipping routes within hours. All right, on that note, as we continue to monitor the latest coming in from West Asia, breaking news coming in this point. Tensions continue to rise in the Gulf waters, and Iran has reportedly seized a ship off the coast of the UAE. That's the latest coming in. Big developments that, of course, will also mean that those tensions in the region will continue to shoot up. In fact, the UK Maritime Trade Operations saying that the vessel was boarded by unauthorized personnel while at anchor northeast of the UAE port of Fujairah and was heading towards the Iranian territorial waters. And the vessel was last seen in the Gulf of Oman. So what is known right now is that at least 2 other vessels, remember, have been seized by Iran during the war. So as of now, the latest development will also mean a further escalation of tensions, and a lot depends on what unfolds here onwards. Remember, this is also coming at a time when Donald Trump is in China, and what happens at the Strait and overall in the region is extremely significant, especially at this point. Remember that meeting also involving Donald Trump discussing the Iran war with his Chinese counterpart. Trump said Xi Jinping had offered China's help to open the Strait of Hormuz and pledged not to send military equipment to aid Iran in its war against the US and Israel. So that's the latest development coming in from West Asia, having far-reaching implications. Moving on for now and shifting focus to the Palestinian enclave, where Israel has sharply escalated its military strikes in Gaza. The renewed campaign coming just weeks after Israel paused its joint air campaign with the United States against Iran. And according to the Gaza Health Ministry, more than 120 people have been killed in the recent Israeli strikes. This includes women and children. The latest casualties rose by 20% since the Iran war was paused on the 8th of April.
The war is still ongoing. It stopped in the announcement. But in reality and on the ground, the war has not stopped, because since the beginning of the year, since the ceasefire, there were a number of martyrs. It is true, there was a small number at the beginning, but from one month to another, the numbers increased. February, March, until April 28th, when I lost my second son. I lost another son previously. Those two were my breadwinners. They used to support me financially, and tend to my needs around the house and my life affairs.
هم اللي كانوا يصرفوا علي ويعيلوني أنا في أمور البيت
Meanwhile, Conflict Monitor, which tracks Israeli attacks in Gaza, saying in a monthly report for April that Israel had carried out 35% more attacks last month than in March. The attacks, in fact, rose as Israeli military grows increasingly concerned in a way that Hamas is rebuilding its networks, rearming fighters, and reasserting control inside the territory. Listen to this.
Since the ceasefire until now, the bloodshed continues. Every day there are Palestinian martyrs. There are more than 854 martyrs since the ceasefire until this moment. April was the bloodiest month, as the percentage of martyrs increased by more than 50% compared to previous months. The Israeli occupation was not satisfied with the siege, was not satisfied with the destruction, was not satisfied with what it did during more than 2 continuous years of war.
In fact, Israeli defense officials have warned Netanyahu that Hamas is using the current ceasefire period to strengthen its hold across Gaza. And this comes even as more than 2 million Palestinians remain trapped in devastating conditions within the region. The ceasefire agreement reached last October had temporarily halted large-scale combat after 2 years of the brutal war between Israel and Hamas. But then efforts to reach a permanent political settlement have stalled, with key issues including the withdrawal of the Israeli forces, the disarmament of Hamas, and also the reconstruction of Gaza. Israeli forces still control more than half of Gaza's territory, while much of the region lies in ruins. Recent strikes have also targeted Hamas-run police positions, killing several officers, as Israel appears to be intensifying pressure on the group's internal security structure. But then the crisis also extends beyond over 2.5 years of this conflict. Gaza's civilian infrastructure has been destroyed. Water pipelines have been destroyed, desalination plants have been damaged or forced to shut down, sewage treatment facilities have collapsed, raising the risk of contamination and waterborne disease. In overcrowded shelters and makeshift tent camps where thousands of displaced families are forced to live in close quarters, poor sanitation and limited water access are driving the spread of preventable illnesses. That's how the situation on the ground is. At the same time, restrictions on the entry of essential goods, including fuel, spare parts, soap, even hygiene supplies, compounding the matters. According to local and international agencies, around 90% of Gaza's population now relies on humanitarian assistance. Large parts of the territory remain devastated, with many families living in temporary shelters or tents. Children growing up in heartbreaking conditions. Aid deliveries have increased under the ceasefire, but remain limited relative to the scale of need. And the political arrangements expected to follow the truce are yet to take shape. A proposed administrative body backed by Donald Trump, where is it? The so-called Board of Peace is yet to establish a visible presence on the ground. And its absence raising key questions about whether the plan to hand over governance of Gaza was ever fully achievable, or if it has now been overtaken by events elsewhere in the region. All of this unfolding weeks after Palestinians voted in local polls for the first time since 2006. The 2028 Republican presidential race may still be a long while away, but new poll giving fresh insights into the potential pecking order. The survey is showing the U.S. Secretary of State overtaking the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance as the Republican Party's top choice for 2028. And this development coming at a time when the New York Times reported that the U.S. President has been privately asking friends and advisors whether Vance or Rubio should actually be leading the Republican Party ticket in 2028. And Trump also fueled the speculation during a White House gathering, remember, early this week, where he informally asked attendees who they prefer to lead the party. Listen to this.
Who likes J.D. Vance? Who likes Marco Rubio? All right. Sounds like a good ticket, JD. That was a perfect ticket. By the way, I do believe that's a dream team, but these are minor details.
And the latest Atlas Intel poll showing Rubio has the momentum. The survey conducted between May 4 and 7 found that Rubio leads the Republican field with 45.4% support, Vance trailing at 29.6%. While the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis coming third with 11.2%. More than 10% of the respondents saying they would not support any of the candidates listed, which also included Vivek Ramaswamy, by the way, also Brian Kemp and Donald Trump Jr. Now, the results also marking a major reversal from December last year, when Vance led the same poll with 46.7% support. Rubio stood at just 22.6%. In fact, Rubio's rise also coming after months of high-profile diplomatic activity, including talks on the Russia-Ukraine war, sanctions on Cuba, also diplomatic engagements involving Iran. In fact, Atlas Intel, which was ranked among the most accurate pollsters of the 2020 and the 2024 US election cycles, also found Rubio still faces a general election challenge with a 46% positive rating, 51% negative rating among the broader public. And J.D. Vance, meanwhile, appeared to dismiss early presidential talks. Listen to this.
There are a few topics that I want to talk about less than what office I'm going to run for years down the road when I'm having a good time and trying to do good work in the job that the American people already elected me to do.
On to Cuba now, which has officially run out of diesel and fuel oil, pushing the country into one of its worst ever energy crises. Huge parts of the capital now going dark for up to 22 hours a day. Imagine that. This is as the country's power grid struggles to stay alive without imported fuel, so the crisis is worsening. For locals, this crisis is becoming nothing short of a nightmare.
Electricity is essential, and when we experience much hours of power outages, it is impossible to go anywhere.
Whenever the power comes back on, everyone says we have to hurry up and cook before they cut the electricity again.
And even as the crisis intensifies, the country says it's ready to review a new US aid proposal offered by Washington. Cuba's energy minister has said the country has no diesel and no fuel oil left, forcing the government to run the national grid only on domestic crude, natural gas, and limited renewable energy. The blackouts also have spread across the capital this week, adding to the growing public anger over shortages of food, medicine, basic services.
The sum of the different types of fuel, crude oil, fuel oil, of which we have absolutely none, diesel, of which we have absolutely none, I am being repetitive. The only thing we have is gas from our wells, where production has grown.
The government saying it has installed more than 1,300 megawatts of solar power in the last 2 years, but officials admit that grid instability caused by the fuel shortage has reduced the system's effectiveness, thereby worsening the ongoing crisis. Cuba also saying global oil prices and transport costs have risen sharply during the West Asia conflict, making it even harder to secure imports. Amid the collapse, Cuba's foreign minister has also said the country is ready to examine that $100 million US aid offer announced by the US Secretary of State. The government says it wants details on how the proposal would work and what conditions would be attached. Of course, there would be conditions. Cuba has traditionally depended on Venezuela and Mexico for oil shipments, but those supplies have fallen sharply after Donald Trump threatened tariffs on countries sending fuel to the island. Amid the Epstein files fallout, Capitol Hill witnessed a bipartisan push to combat sexual misconduct by lawmakers. As per reports, the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson and the Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries announced a new initiative to tackle sexual misconduct by lawmakers. Two groups, namely the Republican Women's Caucus and Democratic Women's Caucus, will work together to identify reforms and solutions. So their aim will be to make the U.S. Congress a safer work environment for women and all survivors. The potential reforms may reportedly include addressing the fear of retaliation, also speeding up the process for reporting sexual assault, and increasing education as well as training resources. But the rot is much deeper. In the month of April, the U.S. House Committee on Ethics released details of publicly disclosed cases involving alleged sexual harassment by members. Since the year 1976, it has investigated 28 cases pertaining to sexual harassment with minors or staffers allegedly. Out of this, 13 congressmen resigned after allegations were leveled reportedly, thereby resulting in no outcome. Overall, sexual misconduct was proved also in 7 cases. No evidence was found against 8 other congressmen. As recently as April, the U.S. House of Representatives saw 2 key resignations. Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, who was first elected in 2012, was seen as a front-runner to replace Gavin Newsom, in fact, as California's governor. But he stepped down when an ex-staffer accused him of sexually harassing her. Thereafter, 3 other women claimed to have received sexual messages from him, allegedly. The U.S. Department of Justice also started a probe into the matter. That's not all. Republican lawmaker Tony Gonzalez also reportedly resigned after admitting to an affair, allegedly, with an ex-staff member who later died by suicide. And weighing in on their resignations, the U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson promised to usher in changes in order to ensure that such incidents don't happen again.
We will bring exact punishment upon those who violate that sacred obligation they have to be a good steward and a boss over their staffs and to not use that position for that kind of terrible activity. I don't know what else to say about it other than it's detestable.
And while these specific allegations are yet to be proved, it has also emerged that one more lawmaker, Republican Party's Corey Mills, reportedly is under investigation for alleged domestic violence. Meanwhile, calls for concrete action to combat sexual harassment are only escalating. On to India, where at least 104 people have lost their lives across Uttar Pradesh after powerful storms, heavy rain, hail, lightning battered multiple paths. The Russian president also expressed his condolences to the Indian president and the Indian prime minister over the loss of life and the large-scale destruction. The Uttar Pradesh chief minister also ordered urgent relief and compensation. Dramatic visuals from Jhansi district purportedly showing a man being blown away by a strong wind. These visuals have been doing the rounds. A 50-year-old man was reportedly lifted into the air along with a part of the structure that he was holding. He was carried some distance reportedly by the force of the wind and thrown into a nearby field. Severe weather swept across the state on Wednesday, causing widespread destruction. The toll also including fatalities from collapsing walls, uprooted trees, lightning strikes, with 53 people injured, 114 livestock lost, 87 houses damaged. In several parts, strong winds uprooted trees, electricity poles as well, while damaged mobile networks disrupted rescue and relief operations. The local officials are saying multiple victims died after taking shelter in unsafe structures that collapsed during the storm, while others were struck by falling trees or debris. And taking stock of the situation, the chief minister of the state directed the district authorities to complete relief work and ensure immediate financial assistance to the affected families. He also warned that negligence in relief operations would not be tolerated. The state government has asked the officials to remain on alert, with departments ordered to assess the damage to the crops, homes and infrastructure. The Relief Commissioner's office saying it is monitoring the situation closely and funds are being released to districts for compensation and emergency response. Our next story begins with a question that might sound bizarre at first. Can a psychedelic transform a country's fortunes? Can it help the country's economy? Why is this question being asked? A sacred plant is at the core of this. It's a fascinating story. It has reportedly been used by shamans for long. It is a psychoactive plant native to Gabon. It's central to what's the Biviti spiritual tradition. For a long time, in fact. And according to a report in the Times, the traditional treatment is believed to result in psycho-spiritual healing. The healing properties, in fact, are treasured there. And to the extent that in the country, the plant is considered a national treasure. It could also lead to visions in a psychedelic experience lasting the duration, which could also mean tears and sweat. But then why is it being linked to the country's fortunes? Well, there has been rising interest when it comes to psychedelic medicine. Joe Rogan, interestingly, advocated for this plant's active compound as well. And a new executive order by Donald Trump to accelerate research into psychedelic therapies in the United States. At the same time, advocates claim that it can be life-changing, this plant, but concerns have also been raised, and scientists are still debating, basically, about its effectiveness. But then at the same time, for this country in Africa, economically speaking, it is a potential national asset that it really needs, as it is still recovering from decades of corruption and the political upheaval following the 2023 coup. It also hopes that growing international demand could also create a new industry around psychedelic medicine and wellness tourism, perhaps. The government has started classifying it as a strategic resource and is trying to regulate exports and also ensure that the country benefits financially from any global commercialization of the same. But at the same time, there have been fears of exploitation and cultural appropriation. In fact, the practitioners in the country and also conservationists are concerned that foreign firms could also end up profiting from traditional knowledge without properly compensating the local communities. So they could be at the losing end. And there are concerns about illegal harvesting as well, fake healers, replacement of traditional rituals with perhaps synthetic pharmaceutical versions. So essentially, this is a tightrope that the country is walking between preserving this sacred cultural practice and also transforming it perhaps into a global commercial industry. A new study has found that gaining weight in your 20s can increase the risk of some types of cancer 5-fold. The study conducted in Sweden showing the highest risk for cancer in those who put on a significant amount of weight before turning 30. And for women, gaining weight around middle age was also particularly risky. That's because of the hormonal changes that menopause brings in. The research looked at data from 620,000 men and women who had their weight monitored between the ages of 17 and 60 and compared it with cancer diagnosis. It found that while becoming obese at any age raises the risk of getting cancer, the stage of life at which people put on weight is also key in determining the increased risk. And men who became obese in their 20s were at a 5 times higher risk of liver cancer, a doubled risk of pancreatic cancer and kidney cancer, and a 58% increased risk of colon cancer compared with men who never got fat. Meanwhile, women who developed obesity before the age of 30 were nearly 5 times more likely to get womb cancer. And they also had a 67% higher risk of pancreatic cancer and a doubled risk of kidney cancer. In fact, researchers say that those who gained weight young had more cumulative exposure to harmful impact of excess fat over their lifetime, as compared to those who gained weight in the middle age. Over in the UK, obesity is the second biggest cause of cancer after smoking. And it's proven to cause at least 13 types of cancer, including breast, bowel, and womb cancer. The study presented at the European Congress on Obesity in Istanbul is the first to compare how the age at which you gain weight influences the risk of multiple types of cancer. And there are several reasons as to why obesity causes cancer. Fat cells basically send out signals that increase inflammation and make extra hormones and growth factors, which in turn increases the risk of tumors developing as well. In the mist-shrouded foothills of Japan, a new kind of predator is stalking the perimeter. It is coming with glowing crimson eyes, a terrifying mechanical howl, and a fiberglass snarl that never fades. It's about a robot wolf guarding rural communities amid a record-breaking surge of bear encounters. Take a look.
Japan is facing a surge in bear attacks. The country is under siege, not from a foreign army, but from its own wild bear population. Since April, a wave of ferocious bear attacks has battered communities in Akita, Iwate, Hokkaido, and beyond. In the 12 months from April last year, Japan saw a record 238 bear attacks, including 13 deaths. Now a company is making these ferocious-looking robot wolves. The company says it is being flooded with orders. The unusual machines were originally designed to keep wild animals away from farms. Now they are becoming an unexpected weapon in a growing wildlife challenge. The robots do not chase or fight bears, they intimidate them. Climate change and a poor acorn harvest have driven the animals, starving and desperate, directly into human communities. The ancient boundary between wilderness and human habitat is gone. Active duty troops have been deployed. Retired police officers are enlisted to fight bears. Gun laws have been relaxed, allowing hunters to tackle the menace. The authorities are also using drones to drive away bears using fireworks, sound of hunting dogs. Bureau report, WION World is one.
Virat Kohli proved that he remains one of the best in the business by smashing a brilliant century to lead the Royal Challengers Bengaluru past the Kolkata Knight Riders. In fact, Kohli's 100 meant that he became the first Indian batter to reach 10 T20 centuries. Kohli, who came into the match after scoring successive ducks, made an unbeaten 105 in Raipur to help his team chase down the 193-run target. And his knock also helped the defending champions go top of the top points table. This was Kohli's 9th century in the IPL, 2 better than any other player. It's also his 10th ton in T20 cricket overall, which is the most by an Indian batter in the format. He is also just the 4th batter in cricket history to reach that major landmark. The 37-year-old was also named the player of the match for the 21st time in IPL, which is the joint most for an Indian along with Rohit Sharma. Only AB de Villiers and Gale have more awards in the IPL, by the way. Kohli is also the fastest batter to reach 14,000 T20 runs, doing so in 409 innings, thereby surpassing Gale's record as well. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Two superpowers, two dealmakers. Trump and Xi face to face. From trade wars to Tehran, tech wars to Taiwan. Live reports from the ground. Expert analysis from across the world.
So even over in that delegation.
Who has the cards? On the high stakes, high risk meet. Trump-Xi meeting. Special coverage. Only on WION. WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness. In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week, creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is one.
Vielleicht nur